Welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast, the photo imaging industry's leading news source. Here's your host, Gary Peugeot. The Dead Pixel Society podcast is brought to you by Media Clip, Advertech Printing, and Independent Photo Imagers.
Hello again, and welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. I'm your host, Gary Peugeot, and today we're joined by Michelle J. Howe, who is with the Empath Evolution, and she's coming to us from Syracuse, New York. Hi, Michelle. How are you today?
Awesome, Gary. How are you?
I'm doing great. Before we get into your business as a mentor and a person who helps other people, where did you get your start?
I was born on March 25th, 1968.
No, I mean in the business world. How did you get your
start? In the business world, well, when I was young, my mom and dad, my mom especially, she took care of all the finances. We had rental properties, and I'd her take care of the books and everything. I really this is so interesting. So I went to school for accounting because I was really good at math, really good at solving puzzles. I was really good at seeing how everything fit together, and it came easy to me. I've always been curious, introspective, analytical, but I went into accounting, and I actually tried to take a psychology course.
Okay.
And I'm because I just loved analyzing people. And I took this course, and I'm like, this is such BS. I'm like, this is not the way that people are. And I'm like, I cannot take this course. This makes no sense. So, of course, I graduated with accounting and computers. I became a CPA. I did consulting. I did business plan advising. I worked with entrepreneurs. And then there came a moment where, of course, got married, had my children. There came a moment where I really had to take another look at who I was. My intuition, the way I was moving through life, I had some unusual things come my way. Like anybody else, when you get hit by a 2x4 or when your life takes a 90-degree turn and you're not sure why it turned, you didn't turn it.
Right.
I just dove really deep into the personal development area to figure myself out.
Okay.
This was when I was about 40 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's got their own little story or big story. Something goes awry, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it was, I don't understand why something has come into my life, why I'm confused by this. I don't understand. I could wreck my life, really. Why am I making the decisions that I'm making?
Sure.
Started to question myself. And, before then, everything was pretty, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. This is how this goes. Life made sense to me.
Right.
This specific example, my behavior was, my choices didn't quite make sense. And I noticed that I was making excuses. I thought I was smarter. I thought I had it all figured out.
Right.
And you don't have it all figured out.
Like the older you get, the less you have it all figured out, I find out.
Well, when you find out that you really don't maybe know everything, or maybe it was a book you didn't read, you were the smartest person in the room, and then all of a sudden, gosh, what is this about? I didn't know this was even possible. To that end, I went through a huge shift. I was depressed, searching, looking, put myself into therapy. You tell me what is wrong. Why did this thing come into my life, and what does this mean? I like to think that I knew what I was doing.
Right. Well, I mean, honestly, if you go back to your, interest in numbers and accounting and things like that, that's putting things in the right place, right? That's really what it's about.
It's about making sense of the world around me.
Right. Exactly.
This goes here because of that. And I didn't have an answer for it. So, I went into therapy, and after 6 months, I looked at the lady. I go, listen, whatever you're selling, whatever you're thinking, this doesn't make any sense from my experience. This isn't helping.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually went to a psychic fair, and I went around and I looked around. I'm like, one of these women going to help me, and I'm going to know who it is. And I did. I found someone. I had a reading. She was really seasoned medium. And she told me this story that just blew me away. And I'm like, what? It wasn't just she told me a story. I could feel that what she was saying,
right.
I felt emotionally completely yeah, she completely gets it. This story, this synopsis of what she's explaining to me makes perfect sense from my experience.
Okay.
I started devouring a little bit of what was outside of the norm of way of looking at life. And mind you, I've always been that deep person. I've
Sure.
always looked at things more, and it just kind of got back to my roots. Yes, I do believe in intuition. Yes, I do believe in things are meant to be. Yes, I do believe there's an attraction for
Hmm.
certain people. Yes, I do believe I can feel like I would be able, whenever I would meet, and my husband always said there was must be something wrong with me. I'd go to conferences or seminars or wherever, and I would have people sharing their most deepest painful moments with me.
Right.
And I felt so like, oh, well, that's fine. Well, I'm honored. It's fine. I'm listening to them. But that was actually a thing,
Right.
that it
It
was
was a thing that happened.
a thing that sort of didn't happen to everybody,
Right.
but it was happening to me. It had always happened to me, but now I really got jolted from this last experience enough that I'm going to pay attention to what this is,
Sure.
because I'm smarter than what this is. Like I can technically, I'm very intuitive. I can read people very well. I'm like, how could something get the best of me? So here's that, like, I don't want to say ego, but
Right.
self-confidence, and that, no, tell me what this is. So what I found out was that I had always been very empathic.
Hmm.
What that means is not just that you can feel other people, you understand them, but people, you can uplift another person just by sharing space with them.
Hmm.
Shift the way that here's this pain coming out. And by talking to me, they leave feeling better.
Sure.
I never realized that I was impacted. I just was listening.
Right.
But all my life, I had like emotional roller coasters at different points. I'm like, why am
Hmm.
I so emotional? I'm like, I am freaking moody sometimes. Why
Right.
the heck am I moody? And I'm like, I could never logically put that together. I'm like, well, I don't know. It must be just being a woman. I go through my cycles and this is what it is. I'm
Right.
moody. But what I found out was that actually some of us are so empathic that we not only can understand another person, we can lighten the load that other people carry.
Hmm.
We make people feel better. A lot of times we become social workers, psychologists, right?
Hmm.
But when I started looking around, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know this was a thing.
Right.
And when I look around, I see a lot of people that are empathic. And then I see them depressed. And then I see them drinking a lot. And then I'm tuning into all these people. I'm like, they don't realize that they're exchanging energy with other people.
Right.
And that exchange can impact them in a negative way, depending on how they're engaging. How much do they care? How much do they empathize? So that's where I learned about energetic boundaries, not just regular boundaries.
Right.
And you can really feel another person. It's like
Hmm.
they have an access to you and you have access to them. It can be very intimate, it can be very intrusive, it can be very damaging. You can walk away feeling exhausted, fatigued. Think about it in a business setting. The guy
Right.
the guy comes in the room for a meeting and he's a jackass. Everybody knows he's a jackass.
Right.
The energy of the room completely drops.
Right.
Nobody's saying a word. Nobody
Hmm.
cares to say a word, right?
Right.
So think of it as you have stories out there, narcissist empath, right? The
Mm.
narcissist just wants this everything they want, right? They're taking, and the empath is giving. And I'm like, wow, that doesn't really paint empaths in a good light. There's a codependence going on there. But if you talk to people that are very empathic, they're very caring, they want to help other people.
Right.
They see the best in the other person.
Hmm.
Then, of course, you get the one that's a little bit more savvy. No, I'm not dealing with this negativity,
Right.
right? This isn't happening. But a lot of times, like I've met some of my very good friends that started and they've been clients. Michelle, I went through this drinking thing. I
Right.
just I didn't know what to do. I was overwhelmed. There's too much, I don't want to say, they don't even describe it as noise. I just need a beer.
Right.
I just need something because my head's spinning. And actually, a lot of salespeople are naturally quite empathic.
Right.
So that's what makes someone a very good salesperson is when
Right.
they can gain that level of trust. But then, you find people that know how this intuitive connection to another person and they use it to benefit themselves. They use it in a very negative way.
Right.
So technically, no, you're not empathic. You're just using that empathy. And what happens when you use that empathy and you're using it to manipulate or to gain advantage or to really find the weak spots in another person and exploit them,
Right.
right? That would be labeled a narcissist if we were talking about labels, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, right. So at the end of the day, I looked at everything and I was doing my accounting, my entrepreneurial training, and I was meeting different people. And I'm like, well, I understood them because I understood the vision of what they were trying to create. And I'm very creative myself. And I'm like, I can help you with your business and this helps. But I'm like, I'm more interested in the person that's in front of me rather than your business that
Right.
you're
Right.
actually thinking. So
People are your business, right?
people are, I mean, I see people as
Mhm.
we're here to grow, we're here to learn, we're here. Oftentimes we go along with what's in front of us, we're making the
Sure.
best of things. Oftentimes we're a little unaware, unconscious to our own emotions,
Sure.
what we truly feel, because we're always looking out at the world.
Right.
We're looking out. Oh, we're looking out for love. We're looking out for success. We're looking out for what am I doing next? What's happening? Very few of us spend the time to look or even notice that what we have inside is really what makes us happy or unhappy.
Right.
We're always looking to feed something from the outside, whereas I look at it as an unfolding that some of us are here to really do amazing things and the sky is the limit. And
Hmm.
whatever your childhood was or wasn't, doesn't need to continue to carry on what you create in your life, whether you are wounded, traumatized, labeled, you feel misunderstood.
Right.
The answer is empowerment. The answer is to get a lot more comfortable with the unseen, the intuitive, the balance of masculine, and feminine,
Mhm.
the logic and the feeling, right?
Sure.
How do you make a life? So at the end of the day, it's like, the most important thing in life is how you feel. Most of us will find different things to patch up so we feel good. We're distracted, whether it's an addiction, whether it's exercise, whether it's a hobby. We are finding things to help us be happy. Nothing wrong with that. It's good. But what if we are just not feeling great inside and not knowing we continue to do the same thing and we are not getting out of this negative cycle? Like we're not listening to ourselves. We're not listening to how we feel. We're not prioritizing how we feel.
Hmm.
Thing is, well, I need to do this. It's got to be that. Like, okay, before you know it, your life is completely taking like your attitude, mental approach, energy level. Life doesn't look so great when
Right.
you're not following something that's empowering you, that's uplifting you. Like you're just doing what you need to do, right?
Right.
And so many people follow that formula.
Hmm.
So right now through Empath Evolution, I set it up. I'm like, I'm talking to empaths. And then I'm like, hold on. Most of the people don't even know they're empaths. And even
Hmm.
if they knew they were empaths, so what?
Hmm.
Right?
Right.
I want people to understand that
Hmm.
feeling, emotions, all of that we distract ourselves from is part of who we are.
Hmm.
All of the things that we hide about ourselves. Oh, I don't like, we put on a mask, right?
Hmm.
Well, I don't want people to know I'm this way or that way. They
Hmm.
might not, I'm a horrible person. I'm a negative person. Like I have to put on this show, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, this person's very insecure. I'm like, no, we're all here to learn. We're all here to grow. We're here to evolve. So I'm an evolutionary guide because we're here
Hmm.
evolving into the next version of ourselves every single day.
So
So,
I have a couple questions here.
yeah,
Because I kind of want to kind of steer this towards the business world, right?
right.
Because obviously the business world is made up of people. Right.
Yes.
You know, what I've discovered with talking to my people in my audience, like, you know, they always try and balance their workforce. Now, today's workforce is a little more challenging because it is so harder to find good people and all the other stuff. But, you know, so what percentage of, you know, the workforce do you think is what you would call an empath? Now, I'm sure everyone has that to some ability, you know, where
Yeah.
they feel that, but you know, where it's sort of like their thing. Is it 5, 10? You know,
I would say a good 25% of the workforce is quite empathic.
okay. Because I mean, there certainly are people who are like the other way, that all they want to
They
worry about
don't
is
care
process.
about anything, right?
Right. And they're, you know, and they just, you know, they want to do the process and they want to work with technology and not deal with people. And they're actually more comfortable dealing with technology or people.
Yeah.
Right. So I get that. So now you said empathic people are more attuned to like maybe sales functions or things like that. How do you like when you're interviewing people for jobs or things, how do you like find those people out? Because I think especially in the photo industry, you get people who are maybe interested in photography or technology, but they're not great salespeople, right? So, can you talk a little bit about how you kind of pinpoint in a business, you know, a candidate who is more empathic, who actually may excel at sales?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Marketing is a puzzle. You can either give into the confusion or learn to love the solve. On the Axiom's Real Talk About Marketing podcast, guests like Aaron Schaefer of GM share how to manage challenges.
Make sure that you're not fixed in terms of what you're thinking about. The team's going to change, and the way teams operate are going to change. COVID was a great example of that. The industry is going to change. Are cookies going away or not? That was another great example of that. And so, how do you continue to evolve as the space evolves?
Guests from HP, The Trade Desk, and Databricks share thoughts on today's marketing landscape. Find Real Talk About Marketing on YouTube, Axiom.com, or wherever you hear podcasts.
Okay. Well, an empathic person that excels in sales, if I was interviewing or if I was talking to someone, I would like to see where they are flexible, where they're open, where they're curious. They are looking at a win-win with another person. That is a person that's leaning in,
Right.
that wants to do good
Right.
in the world, is not just, yes, we need a sale here, right?
Right.
But what am I selling? First off, am I going to sell something that I believe in? This person is not just selling to sell. This person is selling because they believe in something.
Right. Okay. So there's a motivation there beyond just the financial
It's
side of
not
it.
the almighty dollar
Right.
that is the determinant, although it's a factor, right?
Right.
They've got a broader purpose in how they step forward.
Mhm.
They show a curiosity. They show how do you find out if someone shows a caring?
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, that's what I'm getting at. Right. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got the person that got you know, as you're meeting in a room and you're meeting in a coffee shop for the first time to do an interview or something. You know, what are you know?
Okay,
Because
so
clearly there's things you can and can't ask in an interview. I'm sure, you know, I want to keep this all legal and all that other stuff.
sure.
So you know, there's certain things with, you know, certain questions you can't
So
ask or shouldn't ask or better not ask.
looking at it this way, what I would do,
Mhm.
which would be what I would do, I would ask leading questions as, what is a learning experience that took you by surprise?
Mhm.
What was an experience that you thought could have worked better? Like,
Mhm.
can you give me some solutions to these things how would you solve this problem
Mhm.
happening in a group? What will be your go-to? So you're really trying to make a determination over, does this person think outside the box at all?
Sure.
What is this person looking at? How do you denote a good fit? What is a good fit for you?
Right.
Asking leading questions
Right.
where there's not one answer, it's how are they answering it? And then, so this is why empathic leaders are needed more than ever,
Mhm.
because when someone answers a question, you're not just taking what they say, you're listening to what they feel like.
Right.
You're
Okay.
listening to the tone, you're listening to the words they choose, you're watching them to see where they look when they look. It's like you're reading the person.
They're looking at their watch when they're talking to you.
The person, how conscientious are they?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
How uplifted are they? And I can't say exactly from an HR perspective what is most appropriate.
Right.
A lot of HR people are very empathic. You need to be able to deal with lots of different
Right.
personalities.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then an empathic person can shift depending on who they're talking to
Mhm.
very quickly,
Right.
right? Where people get in trouble is when they are so empathic that they
And they care too much.
care
Or
too much.
maybe for the workplace, maybe that might be a little.
And they care too much, or the problem is when you take things on and you don't know that you've taken them on and they exhaust you.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's really about, yes, on one hand, I would like people to be more empathic because there's such a skill that comes with
Mhm.
it. It's a blessing. But on the other hand, if you're very empathic, you best beware because
Mhm.
people are going to exhaust you.
Well,
Like
yeah, you're gonna need that mental health day, right?
yes, you need to manage how you connect with another person because everybody is completely different. And I'll give you an example. So I have a curiosity. That's number one. I was doing some entrepreneurial coaching with a man, and he was pretty amazing, like nice looking guy. He turned every woman's head that came into that place.
Mhm.
The first time in my life I ever noticed that, oh my God, I think they're actually like treating him like he's a piece of meat. Honest to
Mhm.
God. I was like, what's
Right.
going on? And so I started helping him with his business, and I was curious about him. And he showed me all this wonderful side, but I took a deeper dive, and this man, he had been a criminal. He had a shady side to him.
Right.
And me being as empathic as I was, and I was inexperienced at the point to see, I learned a huge lesson from this man because I got a little too, like, he loved talking to me. He
Mhm.
loved coming to have, and I'm like, well, that's fine. I found him fascinating, but then this very negative, I would say abusive,
Mhm.
I get my way kind of man.
Right.
One point, I think I got a phone call and I think it was him, but I wasn't sure. And I was home, right? I'm like, I'm not picking up the phone.
Right.
This time he saw me, no joke, he completely like, you take your words and you can yell at someone or you can even whisper at someone. But
Right.
depending on that intensity of how you aim those words at another person,
Right.
I felt his words come right through me and like bang.
Mhm.
It was like if he had like a gun, I would have gotten shot. It would have
Right.
been that's
But you
how
didn't pick up the phone.
because I didn't pick up the phone.
Hmm. Hmm.
What does that sound like? That sounds like the abusive, you know,
Right.
relationship that the dynamics that can happen. But my point is, I didn't see it. I had never engaged with like
Mhm.
usually I see what's,
Sure.
but I didn't see it. And these dynamics are everywhere. And if you don't have the certain amount of knowledge of yourself
Sure.
and how far into another person you go. So when you're curious, you do a deep dive. Like every one of us, I don't know if your audience will, we all bring our energy forward and it's our
Sure.
body, right? But it's our energy.
Right.
Walk in the room, certain people you know immediate, here they are, right?
Right.
Before they even say a word, here they are. There's their presence right
Mhm.
there. So
Sure.
as leaders, as managers, as business people, you're responsible for how you show up, how you feel.
Mhm.
Feeling radiates out to other people.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
what do you want in your business? You want some radiating toxicity, or do you want some radiating, enthusiasm and
Right.
innovation,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
I like that radiating toxicity. That's kind of interesting.
Because those people exist.
Oh, absolutely. And I guess my question there is, or let's say, for example, you take over a department in your corporate, let's say, for example, you're running the binding department and you've got you, and then you have that person who radiates toxicity. What can you do about that? Because you're not talking about probably a trait that can be eradicated, if you will, without a great deal of therapy, which you're not there to do. It's a job,
So,
right?
yeah, what I would say to that is if the companies and the businesses in this world and the leaders of this world recognize that this was a lose-lose situation,
Right.
you cannot have those players there. And if you make it a condition of employment
Mhm.
of we have these values, our values are this,
Okay.
and we expect our people,
Right.
my husband works in corporate with a lot of people, right? And I understand the dilemma of the leaders and who's babysitting who, right? Who's
Right.
taking care of what?
Right.
Each person needs to be held responsible for what they bring to the table every day. And then some training that would help them see a mirror in front of them. What's your
Right.
behavior like? What's the downfall of this behavior? Yeah, for you, but for everybody around us.
Right.
How do we make them take a closer look into who they are? And you do
Mhm.
that by leading by example.
Right.
We leaders take a closer look at how we show up, how
Mhm.
we measure up in our approach, in our
Mhm.
language, our communication,
Right.
our attitude, the mental space. There should be a standard for that. There
Mhm.
should be some points for that. This is how you show up, and
Mhm.
you're showing up at a 10, 9 out of 10 days, right? Oh no, you're showing up at a 3 at
Right.
best every day.
Right.
Can we help our
Mhm.
people, which are the most important resource in a company, step it up to a 7 or 8?
Right. Well, I mean, where I was getting to is I think there's this sort of things that happens within companies, and your husband, since he works corporate America, probably sees it a lot more,
Yeah.
where you have people who's like, okay, they're good at their job. Let's say, for example, they're good at operating a piece of machinery, and now we're going to make that person head of the department. Well, they may not even be a very good person, the right leader for that department, but because they've kind of reached a certain point in the business where we got to do something with this person because they've been here for 10 years and they're looking to get promoted, but you may be putting somebody in the position who's ill suited to deal with people.
Right. Right.
So
I
I
mean,
mean, it's like
yeah.
this is a huge topic actually, because you're trying to, in any business, you're trying to find the right person for the right role, and you want them to excel. And a lot of times I think in businesses they're setting people up for failure by putting people who, for whatever whatever you're going to call it, empathy or social
Social intelligence,
yeah,
emotional
social intelligence,
intelligence,
emotional intelligence, all of these things.
all of those things are key elements
Right.
just because, and not everybody is good at them,
Right,
right?
exactly.
So at a certain level, everybody should be working to
Right.
attain at least a 5 or a 6.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, you may be able to take a 3 to a 5, but they're never going to get to a 9.
No, no, they're not
Right.
made for that. So
Right.
then you just have to take people for where they're at.
Mm.
But if the language is a little bit like, I think too easily I think it's actually even misunderstood.
Mhm.
What does it mean to be emotionally intelligent? What does it mean to be empathic?
Right.
What does it
Well,
mean?
and in the business world, it's like, hey, that's a little too
Yeah,
touchy-feely.
that's a little
What does
too,
that even mean,
yeah, how do I even, but if you really look at the most successful leaders,
Mhm.
they carry that.
Right.
They're able to connect. They do care.
Right.
And anything, if you're not empathic, are you narcissistic? And how does that impact people?
Right.
What does every person need to understand?
Right.
How they're engaging, how they show up. Does that work? You don't have
Right.
to be a high-end empathic person. You just
Mhm.
have to be a person that respects the space around you.
Right. Or if you're a person who is not empathetic, but you have someone who reports to you who is, just understand the situations you may be putting into them may be overwhelming them or emotionally exhausting them
Right.
or what
How
have
do
you.
you, that's a good point too. How do you manage somebody who is more empathic and more impacted by, oh, you're yelling at me, or I can't say anything in this meeting because like they need to be boosted up. They need to learn skills to
Mhm.
shift up or they leave is what happens.
Right. That's
They
yeah.
leave. This is not my, this is not my rodeo show. I'm not going to stay here.
Right.
You people are toxic to me,
Mhm.
right? which is not what we want. We want a win-win across the board.
Well, that's it. That's what I'm saying. I mean, that person who, the department head may find tiresome because they are empathic, may be one of the best people on the team because they work well with others.
Right.
So are there tools or programs or anything out there that employers can look at for this kind of thing?
I don't think directly.
Okay.
I mean, there are people out there teaching about wellness and teaching some empathy,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not enough. And
Right.
it's still seen as a weakness.
Yeah, that's kind of my point, is that it's,
Still seen as a weakness.
I mean, because there's like the various emotional tests you can take, the NTJ or whatever it is kind of testing. But, I'm not sure they're doing the right function for that.
They're categorizing what people are. So the ENTJ, all that stuff is categorizing you. But I'm talking about something that helps people become more centered in who they are, more
Right.
confident,
Yeah.
more clear, more communicative. Instead of hiding,
Right.
step forward. This
Right.
is what stepping forward. Instead of being confused,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
feeling like you're not good enough, step forward. So it's
Sure.
personal development, but that personal development changes how they show up at work,
Mhm.
changes everything. So if we can inject some of that development soft skill in a person to say, hey, which areas, what emotions, how's
Right.
your mental going? Are you afraid? What, almost like assessing them on a set of emotional balance type assessment.
Absolutely.
How are they doing? How are you doing?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And then providing some resources, some training that is just overall high level to help them get a little clearer
Mhm.
on what solutions might be for them. And then people can go deeper into it because so many people, I mean, our formative years are 1 to 9, 1 to 7, right?
Mhm.
Many people come into this world and they're raised by parents who only knew what they knew.
Right.
Love, maybe, but there's also trauma, maybe. So how do we level out? Because every person I know is healing, shifting, releasing things, dealing with emotions that they may not even know are playing out in the background, but their attitudes can be sharp.
Sure.
They can be not happy people.
Right.
Either they hide it or they don't hide it. Either way is not a good thing.
Mm.
They have to go into psychotherapy for this. And is
Sure.
that a solution? Or is it something that, let me help you understand this at a root level?
Right.
As this is a skill and a knowledge. And, when you see somebody acting out in the workplace, when you see someone miserable, there's underlying reasons why that exists.
Right.
So if you can come in, not specifically directing it at any one person,
Right.
but speak to the topic in general and speak to it as an important ingredient of success. It's inner success. So many people that I meet can accomplish all kinds of outer success.
Right.
But when you really get into the private world that they live in, they are not happy.
Well, and do you think that's because they're trying to look for happiness in their work, maybe?
Work becomes a distraction. They
Mhm.
become good at making money. They become good at this success formula that they've bought into. So instead of, well, this is painful over here, I'm just going to do all the things I do good at. So people love me, or I feel powerful or I feel like I'm a success because look at my success. It's self-evident. It's right here.
Right.
I'm going to focus my attention on all my success and forget about what I'm gambling on a side away. Forget
Right.
about what I'm drinking away. Forget about the fact that I'm lonely and people leave me,
Right.
right? Those are, all part of healthy living, healthy happiness. You can buy it. You can try to go buy it, but
Mhm.
really, there's plenty of poor people that are happy.
Right. Well, money can't buy happiness. That's what they say, right?
That is true. Very true.
So where can people go to get more information about the things you do?
They can go to my website. It's empathevolution.com.
And you've got a lot of cool resources there. This is what I'm looking at. It's pretty awesome.
Thank you. I do. There's a quiz on the page. Not
Sure.
that it's not the end all or the be all,
Right.
but are you an empath? And then you can subscribe and you get some free things. I send out free content and keep people informed. I do a master, like I have a signature program that I move people through if and when they're interested, and a
Sure.
community that comes with that. So, but that's after an initial conversation and initial understanding of what you have going on. And if you really want to talk to me immediately, just email me at Michelle with 2 L's at empathevolution.com and we'll set up a time.
Well, great, Michelle. It's been great talking to you. I've learned a lot, and I think other people have too. So thank you so much, and look forward to connecting with you in the future.
That sounds great. Thank you, Garrett.
Thank you for listening to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. Read more great stories and sign up for the newsletter at www.thedeadpixelssociety.com.